What if I told you that the secret to living past 100 has nothing to do with the supplements stacked on your bathroom shelf, the green juice in your hand, or even how many steps you hit today? What if the most profound discovery in modern medicine, one that won a Nobel Prize, points not to a drug, not to a pill, but to something sitting quietly in your kitchen right now? Here's the question most people never think to ask. Why do some people age and get sick, while others living in the same world, breathing the same air, seem to stay sharp, strong, and disease-free well into their 90s? And hundreds, is it luck, genetics, or is something else entirely going on inside their cells? Today, we're going to look at that question through the lens of Nobel Prize-winning science, and the answer is going to change the way you think about food forever. In 2016, Japanese cell biologist Dr. Yoshinori Ohsumi was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine for something most people had never heard of, a cellular process called autophagy. The word comes from the Greek auto, meaning self, phagi, meaning eat. Autophagy is quite literally your body's ability to eat itself clean. When triggered correctly, your cells break down damaged proteins, clear out dysfunctional components, destroy invading pathogens, and essentially reset themselves. It is your body's most powerful internal renewal system, and the science now shows us that certain foods eaten in specific ways can switch it on like a dial. But here's what makes this truly remarkable. We've also spent decades studying the people who lived the longest on Earth, the centenarians of Okinawa, Sardinia, Ikaria, and the Nicoya Peninsula, regions known as blue zones. And when you overlay what they eat with the Nobel Prize-winning science of autophagy, with Dr. William Li's research on the body's 5 core health defense systems, and with the latest data from nutritional genomics, a remarkably clear picture emerges. The foods that activate your cellular renewal system are not exotic, they are not expensive, they are not what most people think. In today's video, we're going to cover 6 science-backed insights that could genuinely reshape your health trajectory, not by adding another pill to your routine, but by understanding what your cells are actually asking for. Here's what we'll explore: what autophagy actually is, and why it's the single most important biological process for longevity you've never activated to. The 6 foods and food compounds that the latest research identifies as the most powerful daily triggers of cellular renewal. 3. The hidden enemy silently blocking your body's repair system right now, and how to remove it. 4. Why the centenarians of the world's blue zones are not doing anything extreme, and what their daily diet quietly has in common with Nobel Prize-winning science. 5. The 5 health defense systems identified by physician-scientist Dr. William Li, and exactly which everyday foods keep each one fully armed. 6. A simple, practical daily protocol: what to eat, when to eat it, and how to stack these foods for compounding longevity benefits. Let me start with the science, because without understanding this, nothing else I'm going to tell you will truly land. Imagine your cells as a highly sophisticated manufacturing facility. Over time, every factory accumulates waste, broken machinery, misfolded materials, debris that wasn't properly disposed of. If that waste builds up, the entire facility slows down, starts producing flawed products, and eventually breaks down. That is precisely what happens in the aging human body. Here's what's really going on inside your cells. Every day, your body produces millions of new proteins, but proteins can misfold, get damaged, or become dysfunctional. If those damaged proteins are not cleared out, they begin to accumulate. They cluster together, they clog the cellular machinery. And over time, this accumulation is now directly linked to Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's, cardiovascular decline, metabolic disease, and accelerated aging. Dr. Yoshinori Ohsumi's Nobel Prize-winning research revealed something extraordinary. Your body already has a built-in solution for this. Autophagy is a lysosomal degradation pathway, a system in which your cells identify and package their own damaged components, then break them down and recycle the raw materials. It is cellular spring cleaning at a molecular level. During periods of calorie restriction or nutrient stress, autophagy ramps up dramatically. Cells effectively recycle parts of themselves to survive, generating energy and clearing out harmful debris in the process. And here's where it gets profoundly important for longevity. The research shows that autophagy doesn't just clean up cellular garbage, it actively destroys viruses and bacteria. removes damaged organelles, suppresses tumor formation, reduces inflammation, and extends lifespan in every organism it has been studied in, from yeast to worms to flies to mammals. A 2025 study published in the journal Non-Coding RNA confirmed that fine-tuned autophagy plays a significant role in anti-aging biological processes through a key enzyme called AMPK, a metabolic master switch that governs energy balance at the cellular level. Now, here's the critical insight. Most people walking around today have chronically suppressed autophagy. Their cells are running the equivalent of a factory with overflowing bins, clogged machines, and no maintenance crew ever. The primary reason? Chronic overfeeding, persistently elevated insulin, and a near-complete absence of the foods and behaviors that signal the body to clean house. This is the root cause that mainstream medicine rarely addresses. Doctors treat the symptoms of cellular breakdown, the inflammation, the tumor, the dementia, but almost never ask the deeper question: why is the cellular repair system failing in the first place? What the research now shows us is that we can restore autophagy through specific dietary choices, foods that contain natural compounds capable of mimicking the signals that fasting sends to your cells. You don't have to fast for 3 days, you don't have to starve, you just have to eat strategically. And the foods that do this are not dramatic. They're not superfoods flown in from the Amazon. They are mushrooms. They are leafy greens. They are fermented foods. They are specific polyphenols that have been sitting in traditional diets for centuries. We'll get into exactly which ones in a moment. But first, I want you to understand this. Your body is not broken. Your cells are not simply declining with age. They have a repair system. It just needs the right signal to run. If this is helpful so far, consider subscribing. I post content like this every day to help you take back control of your health with real science. Now let's get to the specific foods and, more importantly, the mechanisms behind them, because understanding the why is what makes these changes stick. Let me use a simple analogy. Think of autophagy as a switch inside every one of your cells. That switch has an on position and an off position. When you eat constantly, especially foods that spike insulin, that switch is locked in the off position. Insulin is a growth hormone. It tells your cells there are nutrients available. Now is the time to build, not clean. When insulin is chronically elevated, your cells never get the signal to run their maintenance program. Autophagy is suppressed. Cellular debris accumulates. But when you introduce specific food compounds, natural molecules found in everyday foods, they can flip that switch even without full fasting. Here are the most scientifically validated ones. First, spermidine. This is one of the most exciting compounds in longevity science right now. Spermidine is a naturally occurring polyamine, a small molecule derived from the amino acid arginine found in wheat germ, aged cheese, mushrooms, soybeans, and green peas. Research published in Nature Aging has shown that spermidine promotes autophagy by targeting protein acetylation processes inside the cell, essentially tipping the balance towards cellular cleanup and renewal. Studies in model organisms show it can extend lifespan. Observational dietary data in humans links higher spermidine intake to longer life and lower cardiovascular risk. You can get meaningful amounts simply by eating a daily serving of mushrooms or a small portion of aged cheese. Second, resveratrol. Found in red grapes, blueberries, and Japanese knotweed, resveratrol activates a protein called SIRT1, one of the sirtuin family of longevity enzymes that require NAD+ to function. Sirtuins are directly linked to DNA repair, inflammation control, and metabolic regulation. Resveratrol essentially mimics the molecular signal of caloric restriction, activating the same AMPK pathway that fasting triggers. Research has shown that combining resveratrol with spermidine alters the acetylation status of hundreds of proteins central to the autophagy process, a synergistic effect that neither compound achieves alone. Third, EGCG from green tea. Epigallocatechin is one of the most potent polyphenols in nature, and green tea is its richest dietary source. EGCG activates autophagy by inhibiting mTOR, the cellular growth pathway that, when chronically active, suppresses repair. 1 or 2 cups of high-quality green tea daily provides clinically relevant doses. Dr. William Li considers green tea one of his grand slam foods, one that activates all 5 of the body's core health defense systems simultaneously. Fourth, curcumin. The active compound in turmeric, curcumin, is a powerful inducer of autophagy through multiple pathways, including AMPK activation and mTOR inhibition. It also has potent anti-inflammatory properties. The key to absorption is pairing it with black pepper. Piperine increases curcumin bioavailability by up to 2,000%. Fifth, quercetin, found in onions, capers, and apples. Quercetin is a flavonoid with well-documented autophagy-promoting and senolytic properties, meaning it helps clear out senescent zombie cells that have stopped functioning but continue to secrete inflammatory signals into surrounding tissue. Sixth, berberine. Found in barberry and golden seal, berberine is often called nature's metformin because it activates AMPK with similar potency to the pharmaceutical drug used in diabetes management. It is one of the most studied natural autophagy inducers available. The practical protocol: rotate these compounds daily through whole foods. Think a cup of green tea in the morning, mushrooms with dinner, turmeric in your cooking, and a handful of blueberries as your afternoon choice. Here's something that most health content never addresses directly. It's not just about adding the right foods. It's about removing the things that are actively shutting down your cellular repair system and doing so every single day. Let me explain with a clear picture of what's happening metabolically for the majority of people. When you eat, especially refined carbohydrates, sugars, or large protein loads, your pancreas releases insulin. Insulin's primary job is to shuttle glucose out of your bloodstream and into your cells. This is necessary, this is normal, but here's the problem. When insulin is chronically elevated, when it barely drops between meals because you're eating every 2 to 3 hours, snacking constantly, drinking sweetened beverages, or consuming highly processed foods, your mTOR pathway stays permanently activated. And here's what's really going on inside your body when mTOR is always on: autophagy is always off. mTOR, the mammalian target of rapamycin, is essentially the master switch that tells your cells to prioritize growth over repair. When nutrients are abundant, mTOR signals build. When nutrients are scarce, mTOR steps back and autophagy runs. The problem is that modern eating patterns, 3 meals plus snacks, constant glucose exposure, ultra-processed foods keep mTOR running around the clock and autophagy suppressed indefinitely. Think of it this way. Imagine your cellular cleaning crew works the night shift. They can only come in when the factory shuts down production. But if you keep the production line running 24 hours a day, which is what constant eating does metabolically, the cleaning crew never gets access. The factory keeps running, but the floors are getting dirtier, the machines are degrading, and eventually the whole operation starts breaking down. That's the biological reality of metabolic aging. So what do? There are 2 levels of intervention. The first is dietary. You need to create windows where insulin drops low enough for autophagy to engage. A 12 to 16 hour overnight fast, simply finishing dinner by 7 p.m. and not eating again until 7 to 11 a.m. is one of the most evidence-backed and accessible ways to do this. Scientists have found that fasting for 12 or more hours begins to reliably trigger autophagy, and this is one of the central mechanisms believed to underlie the longevity associated with calorie restriction across cultures and species. The second is food quality. Ultra-processed foods don't just spike insulin, they also introduce advanced glycation end products, or AGs, which are compounds formed when proteins or fats combine with sugar during high-heat food processing. AGs directly suppress autophagy, accelerate cellular aging, damage blood vessel walls, and promote neuroinflammation. The research is unambiguous. These compounds age your tissues faster than almost anything else in the modern diet. The solution is not perfection, it's pattern. Eat your last meal earlier. Resist the constant snack culture. Reduce processed foods, not as a punishment, but as a biological favor to your cells. And anchor your diet in whole, minimally processed foods that provide the autophagy-activating compounds we discussed in the last section.
Your body wants to clean house.
It was designed to. You simply have to stop blocking it. Let me take you somewhere specific for a moment. Picture a small village on the Greek island of Ikaria. The year is 1970. A man in his 80s walks to his garden in the morning, tends his vegetables, eats lunch with his family, mostly beans, greens, olive oil, a little bread, and a glass of local wine. He naps in the afternoon. He eats dinner late with neighbors. He has no gym membership, no tracking device, no supplements organized into a weekly pill box. He is 97 years old, and he is not unusual in Icaria. This is not anecdote. This is documented science. Researchers have now distilled more than 150 dietary surveys from the world's longest-lived populations, the blue zones of Okinawa, Sardinia, Icaria, Nicoya, and the Adventist communities of Loma Linda, California, and a remarkably consistent picture has emerged. A 2024 reanalysis of Blue Zone data, published in Nature Aging, confirmed that 80% of longevity outcomes in these regions trace back to daily lifestyle factors, with nutrition at the very top of that list. What do the centenarians of these regions eat? 95% of their calories come from whole plant foods: beans, greens, whole grains, seasonal vegetables, nuts, and fermented foods. Animal products, when consumed, are eaten in small quantities as a condiment rather than a centerpiece. Red meat is rare. Ultra-processed foods are essentially absent. Sugar, when present at all, comes from fruit. Now here is where the science becomes genuinely thrilling. When you map this dietary pattern onto the autophagy activating compounds we discussed, the overlap is nearly perfect. The beans and legumes of blue zones are rich in spermidine and plant polyphenols. The leafy greens, spinach, kale, beet tops, collards are among the densest sources of quercetin and other flavonoids on Earth. The olive oil used liberally across Mediterranean blue zones contains oleocanthal and hydroxytyrosol, two compounds with potent anti-inflammatory and autophagy-promoting properties. The nuts, 2 handfuls a day, which the Adventist Health Study 2 found to be associated with living 2 to 3 years longer than non-nut eaters, are rich in arginine, the precursor to spermidine itself. In Okinawa, before the introduction of the Western diet in the latter half of the 20th century, the traditional diet was built around purple sweet potatoes, tofu, miso, bitter melon, seaweed, and green tea. Research has linked these high flavonoid intakes to better cardiovascular outcomes, lower cholesterol, lower stroke rates, lower incidence of heart disease compared to every other population studied at the time. In Nicoya, Costa Rica, researchers found something remarkable. The consumption of locally produced rice and beans was associated with longer telomere length. Telomeres are the protective caps at the ends of your chromosomes. They are, in a very real sense, the molecular clock of your biological age. Longer telomeres means slower biological aging. And the humble combination of rice and beans eaten daily, not as a trend but as a way of life, was helping protect them. None of this is coincidence. The centenarians of the world were not following a health trend. They were unknowingly following the precise biochemical instructions that Nobel Prize-winning science would only later decode. The foods that run your cellular renewal system have always been there. We just stopped eating them.